Seb Gorka explains why the mission in Iran was so effective in under 60 seconds.
The operation, right? Midnight Hammer. It's just like what President Trump did in Syria with the chemical weapons. I tried to make this clear to observers. What he did with the Assad regime and those 52 cruise missiles wasn't just about chemical weapons being used against civilians in Syria. It was a message to Putin, to Little Kim, to Xi Jinping, to all regimes. What Operation Midnight Hammer isn't just about making sure President Trump kept his promise to us, Iran will never acquire nuclear weapons. It is a message to every dictatorship who threatens our interests. We can fly into your airspace unnoticed. We can drop 12 33,000-pound bombs and leave unnoticed. Think of one metric. Not one shot was fired and not one Iranian interceptor was launched.
All right, guys, what a Tuesday morning that we have on our hands as we head into the rest of the week. President Trump taking off in the White House to the G7. It's going to be a quick one, 2 days. Seb Gorka's here, by the way, to break down everything that's going on, plus Chad Robichaux. Remember, he's been with us before, Marine Special Forces recon guy, going to tell us about the mission from the inside, what he thinks. I don't want to get too far out on a limb here, but this was a big, big deal. This ceasefire that the president announced yesterday. Look, all of these people were like, he can't do this. This is what's going to happen. Da, 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 da. There is a continued through line that continues to happen over and over again. Trump doesn't do it the traditional way, and good things happen. Axios this morning is out with a whole thing about how the stock market just keeps going up. Really? I thought you guys told us it was going to crash and the world was going to fall. And now suddenly it's if he bombs them, this is going to happen. Politico the other day said that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs was inexperienced. Really? What have we seen? Stop listening to these so-called experts who have had failed policy after failed policy after failed policy. Trump continues to do it his way, a different way, a non-Washington way, and gets results. And it's working. This is him this morning talking about the status of everything and how it got to where it is as he took off from the White House for the G7. Take a look.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Do you have a response to Iran?
Whoa. President, let's just say that was not a good word. By the way, as he heads to the G7, he heads over to some great news. Again, all these people worried, what's the president going to do about NATO? Here's what he's going to do about NATO. Make them start paying their fair share. NATO was created so that as a hedge against the Soviet Union attacking Europe. And Europe hasn't lived up to its Article 5 responsibilities, which at the time was 2% of their GDP to national defense. They're only paying 30% of NATO's fees. Why is it the U.S.'s responsibility to do their bidding? Why are we spending our tax dollars on Europe's protection? They have a responsibility. It was a win-win deal. We'll all have each other's back if we all agree to spend a certain amount, 2% at the time. Trump's heading over there where they're supposedly going to pledge 5%. Remember, Spain and Canada are barely hitting the 2%. And now they're going to up it to 5%, which is a little bit of a fake. It's really 3.5%. But at the end of the day, they recognize that Trump's getting the job done. And this is good news. So he's going to go over there, I think, with a big win under his belt and then getting another win from the G7. No other president was willing to talk to NATO like that. All right, as I mentioned, a great show coming your way. Seb Gorka is going to break down what was going on there and where we go from now. Chad Robichaux is going to talk about what we need to be concerned about. And trust me, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's so dialed in on all this kind of stuff. Tomorrow, Ron Johnson, Senator from Wisconsin, about the big, beautiful bill, plus Congress's reaction to the Iran. So a lot going down. All right, before we get to Seb Gorka. All right, guys, I got to tell you about what I did this weekend. I was killing it on the grill with these brand new steaks that I got from Riverbend Ranch. They are unbelievable. Tenderness and marbling like nothing that I've ever had before. Better than any restaurant, like nothing you can get in the grocery store. These things are phenomenal. I had the ribeye, the New York strip, I had a filet, and then some hot dogs for the kids, all from Riverbend Ranch. These guys are unbelievable. No hormones, no antibiotics, all natural. These guys have been in business for 35 years, doing all sorts of things to create the best steak. And I'm telling you, the family was going nuts. Where did you get these steaks? What have you done? They were so unbelievably excited about these things. They're aged for a minimum of 21 days. They are more flavorful than anything that you've probably ever had in a restaurant or could buy in a store. The cattle are not available. Like, these are things that you cannot get from most ranches. You get them in Wyoming and Montana through this 35-year genetic process they have to create the best cattle in the world. It's unbelievable. You cannot buy this in a grocery store. It's shipped directly from the ranch to your home, ordered directly from riverbendranch.com. Use promo code Sean for $20 off. riverbendranch.com. Use promo code Sean. Get ahead of the 4th of July and order today. You'll thank me later. All right, before we get to Seb, real quick, you know that we've been starting to celebrate the nation's 250th birthday. Tax Network USA is getting in on the business, giving 10% off all of their services up through July 4th. So we got 10 more days until the July 4th, and you can get 10% off. So if you have unfiled, unpaid taxes, this is your warning. Right now, you're getting 10% off to do the right thing for yourself or a friend or a family member that you might know of that's in this boat. Do not wait. This is your signal from up above. If you have unfiled, unpaid taxes, Tax Network USA are the best in the business at this. They will help stop the calls, the letters. They will deal with the IRS one-on-one. They've got a preferred direct line to the IRS, so they know exactly who to talk to and who not to. But I'm telling you, do not think that you can get away with not calling them. They are literally the best in the business. The consultation is free. Get ahead of the problem. Give them a call. 1-800-958-1000 or go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. Full word, no spaces. 1-800-958-1000 or tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. All one word, no spaces, and get 10% off before July 4th. All right, without further ado, I want to welcome back into the show Seb Gorka, Deputy National Security Advisor and Senior Director for Counterterrorism. Dr. Gorka, what a day to have you on the show. How are you doing today? Thanks for being with us.
Whenever anybody asks me that in the last 155 days, I always say the same thing. Living the dream, my friend, living the dream.
So I got to the first thing I want to ask you as a bit of a point of jealous favor, what is the mood there today? Because I feel like everybody's got to be like, yeah, we did it.
I can't really answer that question honestly because
yes,
you know me. What is it? Jesse Waters on the 5 once said, Sebastian Gorka, the scariest man on television. And that was way back when. So I have a certain image. People don't really associate me with happy, warm and fuzzy. But if you ask any of my colleagues, for the last 6 months, I have literally been walking around this building like the Cheshire Cat. I have a grin from ear to ear because I'm in the dream job of my life. Been waiting 26 years to run counterterrorism for the most important president of the modern age. And then what happened? I'm in the sit room Saturday with this small truncated version of the cabinet doing this amazing thing that nobody knows is happening. So as an immigrant, a legal immigrant to the United States, this is beyond belief. And then we have the president's announcement yesterday. So the best analogy, it's a kind of a weak one, but maybe you can help me out as former White House press secretary to President Trump, is President Trump, Sean, is like the magician, but it's all real. It's not sleight of hand. It's not tricks. This is the guy we were told is the warmonger, chaos, economy's going to collapse, World War III, Tucker Carlson is doing his idiocy, even Bannon is out of control, and they have to apologize to him. Why? Because in the space of just, 72 hours or less, he brokered a historic peace after 46 years of Islamofascism out of Tehran. So yeah, we are strutting around the West Wing a little bit today, my friend.
And you should be, because here's the thing. I said this on the morning meeting this morning, right? So everyone said when he first came in, you alluded to this first term, when Trump gets elected, the economy's going to crash. We have one of the greatest economies ever. When Trump came back in office and talked about tariffs, oh, they're going to be horrible for the economy. Clearly not. The Axios has a piece, by the way, this morning saying no matter what happens, the stock market can't go down, right? And they were kind of joking that it's just amazing how resilient it is. Well, it's not just random that it's happening. It's happening because of Trump's policies. The border is strong again. It's closed. We went down to absolutely zero last month, right? And then on this issue in particular, which is your wheelhouse, all of these folks in MAGA said, well, if you drop a bomb, we're getting into a 5 million year war. And President Trump said, basically, trust me, I know what I'm doing, and it's not going to end up that way. And he was right. And the through line to me, Seb Gorka, is that he's not traditional. He's not going through and saying, hey, Bobby, who's been here for 3 decades and instituted all failed policies, tell me what to do again that Obama did and that Biden did. I know how to do it better. And it works. At some point, people have got to trust Trump.
Look, you know as well as anyone, right? What's the biggest way to get in trouble with the president, who, by the way, is far more magnanimous than I could ever be? You know me, Sean. You cross me and you are dead to me for the rest of your life.
That's true. That is true.
No, right? You don't exist. The idea that Tucker says what he says, and then 40 hours later the president says, "Oh yeah, okay, he apologized. No worry. I can't do that. You cross me, you're dead." But there is one way to get really in trouble with him like that. And that's when he says to you, and you can be a 4-star general, you can be a member of the cabinet, and he says, "So why are we doing this way?" And you say, because that's how we've been doing it, sir, for the last 25 years. That's how you get cashier. That's how you lose your stars. That's how you do not collect $200 when you pass go. This is why it's such a pleasure to work for this man. Think of just, you're a military man, okay? Think of this operation. If you read this in a Tom Clancy techno thriller, you'd say, Tom's kind of pushing the envelope of credulity. Everybody's looking at, Diego Garcia. Everybody's worried about what Iran's going to do with our base there. And he says, hey, Pete, can you fly those birds from Missouri? Just a straight shot. Do a little, maskirovka deflection move halfway so they think we're going to Diego. Then fly them under radio silence for 17 hours. Literally do the scene from Top Gun Maverick, which was stolen from Star Wars. Drop the bomb down the exhaust port of the nuclear base. And do it 12 times. And this is the most delicious of all, and now I can talk about it. I'm in the watch floor, the watch floor of the Situation Room on Saturday night, and I said to the guy, because you've got the massive screens up with the tracking and the radars and everything, and I say, hey guys, will you put the news on? Put on Fox, put on CNN on one of the screens. And I'm standing there, and the cabinet's behind me in the JFK room, and they've dropped the payload. In comes the chairman's military aide and says, we have, gives us the readout of what's been dropped. And I look at the TV screens and they're doing like housewife recipes and, what Jay-Z did yesterday. I'm going, nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. B-2s have ingressed into Iran, have, egressed out of Iran, and nobody knows, Sean, until the president posts that iconic truth, thank you for your attention. And then everybody leaves the sit room. I'm standing on West Exec, that little road outside the West Wing, with the Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, the most powerful woman in the world, with James Blair, the Chief of Congressional Affairs, with Marco Rubio, my immediate boss, the acting National Security Advisor, Secretary of State. And we're all standing there on our phones trying to repost the president's truth. And nobody knows until they see it. I mean, this is how much they don't get him. The man they said would destroy the economy and get us into World War III. He's just the ultimate puppet master of geopolitics for Americans, for our prosperity, for our security. And the fact they don't get it. One last thing. If you don't appreciate the last 4 years of his first administration, you're an idiot. How many wars did he get us involved in? None. But what did he do? He kills Sulemani as he's sitting in the passenger seat of his armored SUV on the way to his meeting with the Iraqi prime minister, the puppet of Tehran. He sees 300 Russian mercenaries destabilizing the Middle East, and he tells that lapdog Mattis, the guy who said he's the big warrior, says, hey, Jim, kill them now. 300 Russian soldiers turned into red mist by our tier 1 operators in a 4-hour battle. No president since 1917 has done that. Or when he sees chemical weapons about to be deployed by Assad, he doesn't talk about red lines like Obama did. He says, turn the air base into a sheet of glass. And then he whispers over Xi Jinping's shoulder at the Mar-a-Lago state banquet as they're eating the best chocolate cake in the world, hey, Xi, I just flattened Assad's chemical weapons base. This is what I call surgical strength. The decisive use of overwhelming force when justified in terms of national security, and then our guys go back to their bases. If you haven't been watching for the first 4 years, you don't get what happened on Saturday, and you never, ever will. Sorry.
So I think that what has happened, though, is that he has proved to MAGA and to the people that didn't get it that there is a new way. The alternative to me was false. I mean, the choices. It was, well, you either bomb them and get into a forever war, or you let them have a nuke. And I made the case that that's not accurate. There is a middle way, which is what Trump's proposing, which is take out their assets and not agree, not have a military follow-on regime change, whatever. And I guess my point to you is that beyond your hat, the NSC hat, think about, put your America First MAGA hat back on for a moment. And the question to me is, has he now silenced that wing of MAGA to say, guys, he just showed you it can be done. You don't have to choose between one extreme or the other. Forever wars or no intervention. You can be strategic and precise.
I ideally hope so, because this part of MAGA, which as far as I'm concerned isn't MAGA, needs to be excised from conservative politics, because they're not just isolationists. There's a lot of them there who are like neo-Buchananites, and they use isolationism as an excuse to veil anti-Israeli or at times anti-Semitic views. And we can't have any truck with that. I'm worried that some of them will continue to do that, even though Tucker's apologized. Why? Because they're in it for the clicks. I mean, they are in it for the clicks. They're not MAGA. They're just exploitative grifters. But can I tell you a personal story? So we had this storm here in Virginia at the weekend, and we lost power at a Gorka HQ, and it was 2 days without AC. Can somebody please give a Nobel Peace Prize to whoever invented AC? Anyway, so I'm standing outside.
How did you not have? You don't have a generator at Gorka HQ? I got to think so.
I've been trying to convince my real boss, Katie, to get one, but she runs the finances, so I'm still working on that.
All right.
So we're waiting for the power company to come, and 2 days later they finally arrive, and it's eventually you're waiting for the bus for 3 hours, and then 4 of them come. We had 4 bucket trucks, 3 pickup trucks, a drill truck. I mean, everybody arrived at once. And I'm waiting while these hard men, you know, with the insulated gloves, the boots, are climbing up with these live wires, and we start chatting, and they find out what I do for a living. These guys, working class Americans, they get President Trump. This was before Saturday. This was just before I went into the sit room on Saturday, and they said, yeah, we hope he drops the big one on them, right? I mean, these are the people who want American force used when necessary without interminable forever wars. I think the president has sent the message, but at the end of the day, it's not up to him, because the clickbait prostitutes who are fake MAGA will continue to do what they do. But the good news is they will be irrelevant, because the real MAGA, like those linemen, like those power workers, the 77 million who get it, they understand peace through strength. And it's not walk softly and carry a big stick now. It's walk softly and deploy that squadron of B-2s whenever you want.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard the phrase clickbait prostitute. I'm going to have to write that one down.
I was going to use a slightly stronger one, but I for the ladies out there, yeah, I dialed it back.
So I want to switch from MAGA to the other side, because there's a tweet last night that came out from a guy named Jamie Metsel. I want to read it to you and to the audience. It said, I served on the National Security Council under President Clinton. I was Joe Biden's deputy staff director of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I voted for Kamala Harris and been a vocal critic of many dangerous and undemocratic actions taken by President Trump. But I'm not a blind tribalist, and I'm perfectly comfortable with praising President Trump for bold and courageous actions in support of America's core national interests, as he took last night. Iran has been at war with the United States for 46 years. Its regime has murdered thousands of American citizens. Its slogan, Death to America, was not window dressing, but core ideology. It was racing towards a nuclear weapon with every intention of using it to threaten America or our allies in the Middle East region as a whole. No actions like this come without risk. I imagine the story will get more complicated over time, but that's what these kind of decisions are, complicated. Although I believe electing Kamala Harris would have been better for our democracy, society, and economy, as well as for helping the most vulnerable people in the United States around the world, I also believe Vice President Harris would not have had the courage or fortitude to take such an essential step as the president took last night. Wow.
You were doing, what's his name, Joe? You were doing so well, Joe, except when you said, Kamala
Jamie.
would have been better.
His name's Jamie.
Jamie would have been, Kamala would have been better. Let me respond to that. He's wrong.
Whoa,
what the president,
on which part? Because I think he's right that she would have never dropped that bomb.
No. Before that, when he said, it's complicated. It's not complicated. You're a student of war. Clausewitz, who I have some, issues with, Clausewitz was very right on this. War is simple. It's hard to do, but it's really simple. Why? Because it boils down to one thing, and we have been given the master class in the last 3 days. What is war about? Why does Clausewitz, the man who shaped Western thought on war, why does he always use analogies about card players and wrestlers? Because it's about one side, one man, one nation imposing its will on the other nation. That's not complicated. It's very simple. I influence you to behave in a different way, either because I threaten you and you're scared of me, or because I crush you into the dust. President Trump just did that. He broke the will, as Jamie said, of a regime that has been at war with us for 46 years. It wasn't complicated. Why? Because he is a decisive man. Let's be honest, a little bit peek behind the curtain, let's open the kimono. Sean, I don't know, maybe you've had some great patrons in the Navy. Have you ever met a man in your life, I don't know how old you are, I think we're about the same age. Have you ever met a man in your life who is as decisive as President Trump? Because I haven't.
Yeah, I think that's the point of what Jamie tweeted, though, right? He wrote, I believe Vice President Harris would not have had the courage or fortitude. And I get his lead up. He doesn't want to get eviscerated by his own team. But at the end of the day, that's the key thing. Kamala Harris can't decide between running for governor or president again, either of which I think is a disaster. How do you then, if you can't make that political decision, how do you make a decision about what to do? Because I guarantee you the way the Democrats have acted between Biden and Obama, they just would have sent them more cash.
Well, let's listen to themselves. Let's listen to Obama and Biden and their autobiographies. Bin Laden was the most important enemy of the United States for almost a generation. And when we finally identified where he was hiding out in Abbottabad in Pakistan, what did the then commander-in-chief do? In the sit room, what did he do? Obama took a vote of his cabinet. He said, should we kill the man responsible for... He asked the opinion of people who weren't elected. He's the only one who's elected. The buck stops with him. And he took a vote. Oh, and by the way, who's the only person in the room who said, no, don't kill Osama bin Laden? Oh, yes, the future president, Joe Biden. This is who the left has become. They're crippled by their own hatred of America. And that's why President Trump is... Look, the U.S. Army, I don't know the other services, I think they're in a similar situation. Thanks to Pete Hegseth and the president, the U.S. Army filled its recruitment goals for the year by May.
Yeah, the Navy, by the way, Secretary Phelan just announced the Navy's hit its goal. So just don't get too excited for the Army yet.
I mean, what does that tell you, Sean? What does that tell you?
I know, there's an excitement.
Yeah.
Seb, the last thing I want to ask you, and our time is tight. Can we trust Iran, and do we, from your perspective, from what your wheelhouse, counterterrorism, do we have to be vigilant and worried about any potential repercussions?
We never trust dictatorships, right? We didn't trust the Soviet Union. We never trusted Cuba. We don't trust Venezuela, and we don't trust Iran. No. As President Reagan said, you have to verify it. You can trust the initial statement, but then you verify it. But at the end of the day, let's be clear. I can't go into the details of the conversation, but the operation, right? Midnight Hammer. It's just like what President Trump did in Syria with the chemical weapons. I tried to make this clear to observers. What he did with the Assad regime and those 52 cruise missiles wasn't just about chemical weapons being used against civilians in Syria. It was a message to Putin, to Little Kim, to Xi Jinping, to all regimes. What Operation Midnight Hammer isn't just about making sure President Trump kept his promise to us, Iran will never acquire nuclear weapons. It is a message to every dictatorship who threatens our interests. We can fly into your airspace unnoticed. We can drop 12 33,000-pound bombs and leave unnoticed. Think of one metric. Not one shot was fired and not one Iranian interceptor was launched against our B-2 bombers that had just flown 17 hours into Iranian airspace. This is a message to all dictatorships who we do not trust, but if they try to test us, guess what? We have a lot more of those bombs and a lot more of those B-2s and those brave pilots. Not for forever wars, but so that we can reach out and touch you.
Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the White House. As always, you never disappoint. Thanks for joining us today.
God bless. Thank you, Sean.
You bet. All right, now I want to have an amazing conversation with Chad Robichaux. He is the host of The Resilience Show, former Force Recon Marine, an all-around good guy. Chad Robichaux. Chad, thanks for joining us. Always great to see you.
No, thanks for having me on, Sean.
All right, look, I got to ask somebody of your expertise, caliber. Give me your take on this operation that happened Saturday night in terms of planning, coordination, effectiveness.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the planning of this operation, you take away all the other factors. This is probably, in my 30 years in and around the military, the most spectacular military feat that I've seen. And I was just the co-author of my new book, Silent Horizons. His name's Jack Stewart. He is a former Top Gun pilot, Top Gun instructor, and we were talking yesterday about like what it would take from the aviation side to pull this off. And this is something that I think not only did they just prove the power and might of the United States military and in leadership of Pete Hegseth and just the ability of our troops, but something that they had planned this for probably 15 years. They had I mean, when you're in the military, like they have these things, these operations you do every year, and you train for it and do like, Steel Fox, or the Marines do CACs every year. And so you're planning for a specific type operation. Those stealth fighters planned for this exact run over and over and over. So they didn't have to train for it. They just like, okay, it's go time. Let's pull the trigger. And, seven stealth bombers went one way as a decoy. 7 went towards the target, 125 aircrafts. They 37 hours, longest flight in history, or either the longest or second longest flight in history. They never broke communications, and they flew in, put 14 MOBs, which are like 30,000 pounds. They could drill down 300 feet through reinforced concrete before they exploded. And not one bullet from Iran, not one aircraft launch. They never knew we were there until we were gone. It was amazing to be able to see that.
I said this yesterday, Chad, and I'm glad you reaffirmed this based on your experience, that I think this will go down as one of the most effective military operations in modern history because of the jointness of it, the effectiveness of it, the stealthness of it. It shows the planning that goes into an operation like this, and also the leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of coordination and very clear and decisive leadership because, look, this could have exploded into something much worse than we're seeing now because of the way it was done. And I think when you look at Putin, him not acting, President Xi not acting, it's because of the precision we did this in. We didn't wound a civilian. We didn't attack a military base or attack Iranian troops. We didn't attack a government facility. We specifically took out what we believed was a clear and present threat to the United States and our interest. And the precision of it was so important to this.
Yeah, it makes me think back to like some of the first exercises I did in the late 1990s, where you are rehearsing an action, knowing that it may never come, but the idea is the muscle memory, so that when it happens, to your point, you think about these B-2 guys and the pilots who go on these missions and just do a route over and over again, knowing that it may be 1 year, it may be 5 years before they ever actually have to run it. But then it becomes muscle memory as opposed to trying to do it for the first time.
Yeah, the military does this. It's, we call it operant conditioning or muscle memory. You do the same thing over and over and over again. That way, when the moment comes and it happens, for an assaulter going through a door, the door gets breached and you got, a bunch of tier 1 assaulters that did it a million times going in and they're not even thinking about what they're doing. They're just doing exactly what they trained 1,000 times to do. And these pilots flew this mission many times before. They flew this exact mission for that exact target, Fordow, over and over and over again. And it was just, that's why they executed at such precision. And it put the world on notice of how great the United States military is. And I love that because, I was, Pete Hegseth and I talked about this, him as Secretary of Defense, like the importance of restoring the morale in our troops, the recruiting and retention in our troops, the confidence in the United States, just the United States of America, that our military is the greatest and strongest, not in the world, but in history. And this showed the world and put the world on notice that we are, in fact, are still. And that makes the world a safer place. It makes the world a safer place to know what the U.S. is capable of, because that is the emphasis to me of peace through strength.
It's interesting. I was about to ask you this, what does it say about our military? And you answered the former part of what I was thinking about, meaning what does it say to the rest of the world? And I want to go down this rabbit hole with you in just a second, because I want to think about if I'm China and I'm thinking about Taiwan, if I'm Russia and I'm thinking about helping Iran, like maybe that's going to give you a ton of pause. But you brought up an aspect of it that I didn't think of, Chad, which is the internal domestic consumption of this. Like if I'm at home and I'm a 17-year-old young man or woman that says, I'm thinking about joining the military, I just went, wow, that's pretty badass, right? It's not just a movie like Top Gun coming out. It's like, hey, I just watched this coordinated effort between that was really joint. You got the Air Force dropping bombs, the Navy firing Tomahawks. I now want to go be part of this.
No, it's a huge factor, and it was a very important part of the election for me. I mean, I watched because of what my role at Mighty Oaks and being involved in the military so long. I've spoken over the last decade. I've spoken over 500,000 troops, and I've watched the degradation of our morale, recruitment, retention. At the end of the last administration, President Biden had pushed the military to a point. I'd say Secretary Austin, but he was pretty absent as a SecDef. But we had pretty much pushed our military to the lowest recruiting since Vietnam. In a short period of time, only 6 months of Pete Hegseth being in office and making those changes in the military, we saw I think a 20-year record high in recruiting. So America's sons and daughters felt a confidence in a new leadership as President Trump as commander-in-chief and Secretary Hegseth. They felt a new confidence in the leadership to say, hey, I want to serve because I believe in the direction our military will go. If we do fight, we're going to be the most prepared, the most lethal, and we're going to go have a clear mission and go win and come home. We won't put our boots on the ground for no reason. And I believe that the American people believe that, and the parents of throughout America had the confidence to encourage their sons and daughters to do. I mean, I'm around a lot of legacy military families. My family's been serving for 90 years now. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. I did Afghanistan. My son did Afghanistan. I have a son still in. We in the special operations community, we have a lot of sons that join. And I know a lot of guys, especially in the SEAL community, that had these multi-generation legacy SEALs that did not let their sons join this last administration. And yesterday, to your point, I got a call from my youngest son, Hayden. He was active duty. He got kicked out for refusal to vaccine. He went back into the reserves. So he's in the reserves now. And he just has not been very impressed or motivated. I mean, I'm putting him out on blast here. But I was so happy that he called yesterday. He's like, man, this actually makes me want to re-enlist.
Really?
And I'm like, why does it make you want to re-enlist? He's like, it's just so motivating to see what our military is capable of. And I was really shocked by his response to that. But it's to your point, like.
But were you? I mean, I guess the thing that's interesting to me is that for the 4 years of Biden, look, I got into the military when Bill Clinton was president. I didn't get in because of the commander in chief. I got in because of a desire to serve the country, not a particular president. And I've noticed I mean, Pete Hegseth talks about this warfighter ethos and the lethality of the force. I just think that people who join the military do so because of a greater sense of purpose and focus. And that was missing for 4 years. And when Trump and Hegseth started openly talking about it, I feel like a lot of people said, okay, we're back. And I want to get into this. I want to stay involved in this, whatever. But I'm not shocked by it. I actually think people were like, okay, now I'm back. Like, I get it. I've got some motivation.
Well, I'm not shocked by it either. I was shocked by it because of my son specifically, because I'm his dad. So I know him differently. But I'm certainly not shocked by the response of our recruitment numbers and the morale of the military. I'm not shocked at all. This is exactly what our military needed. And look, this isn't a recruiting issue. This is a national security issue. If you can't have the morale, recruitment, retention in our military, that is a national security issue,
right?
Especially in a major war, because it doesn't just speak to the numbers; it speaks to capability. Because motivation and buy-in is so important to the ability to be able to pull off what happened this weekend. I mean, those aviators and pilots and all the crew that was involved in that operation last year, those are people that are bought in and they believe in the mission.
So I want to though go to the second point that you and I both were talking about, which is if I'm China right now and I'm thinking about Taiwan, or I'm anybody thinking about saber rattling, I watched President Trump try to negotiate. Basically, I think Iran giving him the middle finger and saying, you know what, I don't know, maybe not. And then him saying, fine, I'll show you. I'm willing to act decisively. And I think that we just talked about the domestic piece of this. The international piece, I think after Syria in his first term and this in his second, has sent a clear and bold message to the rest of the world that the president will not hesitate when it comes to acting on behalf of America's national security interests.
100%. Look, it's. I mean, I could spend an hour talking about the answer to what you just asked because there's so many facets of it. I mean, but I think at the core, to know that you have a commander in chief, the leader of the free world, who's willing to act, and when he says something, he means it, and we haven't seen that in our country. We had Biden and Kamala saying, "What is your response to Iran? Don't."
Right.
Don't. Yeah.
And here's a pallet of cash in Obama's case.
Yeah, exactly. And and President Trump saying we're gonna bomb the crap out of you. And look, they have to weigh the decisions they make on a with the factor that with our capability, and we just demonstrated it. But this isn't nothing new. I mean, President Trump's first 4 years, a lot of people don't know because it didn't make the headlines, but he pretty much eradicated Al Qaeda off the planet with strategic strikes in a period of 6 months.
Right.
So the news didn't give him credit for that, but that's what happened. And in Afghanistan, I believe President Trump missed a huge opportunity because I believe we beat the Taliban between 2016 and 2018, and the Taliban essentially was not in conventional war with the United States anymore. We were participating in a support and advisory role. President Trump had pushed the troops down in Afghanistan down to about 1,500 at the lowest point because we were in a support and advisory role. He could have declared a victory there, and he probably should have. And I think that was a kind of PR mistake that the administration made, but he had a lot of victory in his first administration through strategic strikes, and the world took notice. That's why Putin waited till he was out of office to move into Ukraine, and because he knew he could do it with President Biden. So I think if I'm President Xi or President Putin and I'm wanting to do things, I'm like, hey, okay, we're going to sit on this for a while, and we're gonna try to influence in another election. We're going to attack them, through cyber means and different types of things like that by proxy, but we're not going to do make any big direct moves while President Trump's in office. Yeah. So I think the threat kind of shifted to, their kind of electronic influence campaigns and stuff like that.
I agree with you though, but I think if you get, as I do, I believe you get JD Vance following on. You're trying to buy 3 more years of Trump, and then you're probably buying 4 more years of Vance, and then Putin's dead.
Hopefully 8 more years of Vance, and that's why the American people. It's important that we recognize what we're talking about here because it matters at the ballot box.
Yeah. Well, look, there's no question about that. I talked to Seb Gorka about this. I mean, it's the leadership matters. They either fear you, don't, and there was a huge contrast between you have Obama sending a pallet of cash. Biden basically being like, we're going to get a deal with you guys. And we want to, Iran felt like they could toy with us. With Trump, the message is clear. Like, I'll screw with you. I'll take you out.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure right now the reason that their supreme leader is starting to cave is because I would imagine President Trump has sent him a message, probably let him know exactly where he's at. And hey, we know where you are.
We know where you are, and I can kill you.
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right. Well, speaking of that, though, like, what is like from a follow-on standpoint? Like, what does it look like in terms of further intelligence, battle damage assessment? Like, how are we, and when are we going to have a better sense of what we destroyed and what Iran's capabilities still are?
Yeah, the truth is, I don't know the exact answer to that. Look, I don't think we're going to put people in the ground to do the BDA. I think we have great technology of satellite imagery, but ultimately it's going to be boots on the ground, humans on the ground. So it's going to be a reliance on Israeli intelligence, which, I stand with Israel. I don't trust the Israeli government. That's kind of my position in that. Especially, they have their own interests. They're a country that has their own interests in their protection of their own country. So but I do believe that the BDA, the battle damage assessment, will probably come from the Israelis, and that's the information we'll be fed. I don't think we're going to have boots on the ground there to go do that.
So let's just take this one step at a time real quick. Do you think that this holds? I feel like Israel, the president was pissed this morning, and Israel got the message like, hey, don't screw this up. Right.
Yeah.
So I get the sense that he has sent that warning shot verbally to say, guys, I got a ceasefire, cut it out.
Yeah, I have buddies that are there right now. Kind of little plug to Dennis Price and Heroes for Humanity. They're out there evacuating people, and I texted him, "Hey, the ceasefire deal." He's like, FaceTiming me like, hey, here comes the rockets. And this is we got 2 hours left before this thing's supposed to go. Why are they still firing rockets back and forth with the ceasefire? And that's direct from the ground. So they were still firing rockets after President Trump announced the ceasefire deal. And I think Israel needs to stop, and Iran too. I mean, to me, as soon as this thing's announced, full stop. But hopefully they will. Hopefully they honor that, and it's in the best interest, by the way, of Israel to honor that. And I just hope they do.
All right. So, Chad, you mentioned real quick the sort of potential future strikes. Should we be worried about sleeper cells in the United States?
Yes, and I don't say that to scare the heck out of people, but it's just wisdom. Look, we had 4 years of open borders. I have no doubt, and anybody in the intelligence community or from my background or you, we have bad actors in the United States. We have people that have come from China, Iran, all those parts of the world, and they flooded the United States, and they have ill intent to do harm. I think for me, I'm telling my family, hey, don't go to any large gatherings that you don't need to go to in the next month. Let's see what intelligence. Let's see what Kash Patel and the FBI. Give them some time to watch for movement, look for chatter, and let's see what's going to happen. And then also be prepared, because I think more than a mall shooting or a swarming attack, what I predict would be a attack on our critical infrastructure. I'm on the board of the Center for Security Policy with Tommy Waller, and we have really looked at this for years. And our grid is so vulnerable, and we have so many vulnerabilities to our critical infrastructure in the United States. And Americans, our way of life really relies on our ability to have power. And so if the critical infrastructure gets hit, it would take us a very long time to get something like our grid stood back up, and most Americans are not prepared. So be prepared. Have ability. If you're a man, you should be able to protect your family physically with personal security in your home. So have guns, ammo. Not being a weirdo prepper, but you got to have those things, and you have the ability to. How can I get my family if the power grid goes down? How can I make sure my family's not going to die of dysentery? Where can I get potable water? How can I feed my family? Harvest food, feed my family. Do I have I'm partnered with a company called Uncharted Supply Company. We have these 72-hour bags that if something happens in 72 hours, everybody that would fit in that vehicle could survive. And so I have one of those in every one of my vehicles in my home, and I have larger supplies. So I'm a prepared person. I'm not a paranoid person. I believe I'm wise from my experience. And the reality is our grid is very vulnerable, and we have bad actors in this country that are willing to do us harm. And right now is a time that they may act on that as a proxy to what's happening in Iran. Okay.
So the message is that you want to get across is whether it's cyber or electric, be prepared, be ready.
Be prepared, be ready. Yeah, you got to. And I know so many people are like, oh, that's paranoia. It's not. It's just wisdom.
Okay. All right, Chad Robichaux, appreciate all you do, your service to this country, the insight that you could share with us right now. Thanks for all that. I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Guys, a great show headed your way tomorrow. Senator Ron Johnson's going to give us the latest on Congress's reaction to everything here, plus the big, beautiful bill. It's careening towards the end of the week vote in the Senate, then potentially the House. There's a lot of issues still that have to be resolved. We're going to get the latest update from Ron Johnson tomorrow. Can the Senate pass it? Will the House then pass what the Senate sends it? We're going to break it all down with him. My latest newsletter is out today at SeanSpicer.com. It's always free. Please sign up. Always look forward to you guys joining us at 6 o'clock for the premiere on YouTube. Thanks for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.